I've been watching Beastmaster shit all day.
The Beastmaster is a 1982 sword and sorcery film directed by Don Cascarelli and starring Mark Singer, Tanya Roberts, John Amos, and Rip Torn.
You make your daddy proud. You hear me?
Oh, welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and once again, I'm joined by Lindsay Washburn. What's going on?
Hello, hello. Was Jawbreaker the last time we did Cult of Film?
That's right.
It was a great episode. Even the director, dug it, so that was cool.
Well, I'm not... We're just so amazing at talking about these films. That's why we pick amazing films. Because Lindsay, this must be TBS in 1980, because this is the Beastmaster station.
In a time of mysticism, sacrifice, and plunder, there came the only light, the Beastmaster.
This was one that you and I have been talking about probably since we met each other digitally. Because
I think the first thing I think we did together was the Kubrick retrospective.
It should be 3 shakes. This is my gun. No, in time to the thing. This is my rifle. This is my gun. This is for fighting. This is for fun. So give it 3, because a lot of people just still touch and go with what they're doing.
If I'm remembering correct, and even after that, we had a little chat after we got done taping the show, and I'm like, ooh, sometime we got to talk about Beastmaster. And ever since then, we're going to do a Cult of Films on the Beastmaster. And it just hasn't happened. We keep punting. And finally, today is the day we're going to talk about Beastmaster. I'm so excited.
This invaded every household, I think. You couldn't escape the early 90s and late 80s without Beastmaster being on in the background at some kind of family function.
Come on. You two got me into this, now get me out.
It was just like a thing that you kind of ignored. It was just always there. It was like that warm blanket. What made you actually turn and pay attention to this film? Because you have claimed that this is one of your favorite films of all time.
It is one of my favorite films of all time. I love this movie ever since I was a kid. And like you mentioned, it was on all the time. TNT, TBS, HBO stands for Hey, Beastmaster's on. It was on all the fucking time. And as a kid in the Midwest, I mean, there's not a ton of channels. We didn't really have cable. There's not 1,000 channels as there are today, and there's not all these streaming services. So what was on TV was all you had to choose from. And Beastmaster was on all the time. And most of the time, you never caught it start to finish. You'd catch it in the middle or towards the end. For the longest time, I had only seen the last 40 minutes of the movie. And then probably the first time I can remember actually sitting down and watching the entire thing was probably when I was 11 or 12, was when I finally was able to catch the entire thing in one sitting, because otherwise you were just catching pieces of it here and pieces of it there. But what drew me to it so much, it was just such a weird movie to see on TV.
Yeah.
During the day. It was on during the day. And you saw this weird stuff with witches and transferring a baby from its mother to a cow, and Rip Torn and his insanity, Mark Singer in his little loincloth, and the animals were super cool. And I wanted to be the Beastmaster so bad because I wanted to be able to talk to animals. Yes. So there was so much in this movie that just sparked my curiosity. I just fell in love with it.
And right, 100% on everything you just said. However, when I was younger, I thought that this was a show. And I would argue with people because you would turn on the TV and it was always on something. But there is so much shit packed in here. It ends 5 times. There's you've already, you forgot, bat things that dissolve human flesh. There is child sacrificing in here. There is just so much thrown at you, but it's done in this almost family-friendly way.
Yes.
But so it's you're seeing the most horrific things of all time, but it's just wrapped up in this nice little package where it's just you could watch it with grandma.
Yeah, a nice little PG package.
Yeah.
80s PG.
80s PG. Correct. Yeah.
This one has titties.
Yes. Abortion. I mean, literally.
Yeah, so many things.
Everything. And Rip Torn with a very phallic nose, might I add.
Yes, very much so. That wax beak that he's got on his face.
I love him. He is my favorite part of this movie.
See? I have spoken. He wants your children.
And I love that he insisted that he looked like, he's like, I want to look like an old crow. And they're just like, okay.
Yeah, a turkey vulture. I was just like, oh my God, this man's insane. But because I mean, originally they wanted Klaus Kinski for that role, but the money people wouldn't let Don Coscarelli get him because I think he wanted like $5,000 more than they had budgeted. And Don Coscarelli was like, I will find the $5,000 so we can get Klaus Kinski. But the money people were like, no, and they brought in Rip Torn, but he was very, very happy to have Rip Torn because he did a great performance. He's just, you could tell he's having a ball playing that role because it's so over the top.
Yes.
And he's doing all these crazy things, and the nose and the braids and the teeth.
Oh, it's great. Let's talk about the pride of Tripoli, Libya, Don Coscarelli, because, everything makes so much more sense now that I'm older and I know how to research things now as much as I know how to research things. It's just like, why did this movie? And again, I thought this was a series. I would argue with people that everyone's like, yeah, Beastmaster was a series, but it was a TV show. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? It was just a series. And then I felt really stupid later that, yes, it was all of that. Even the series credited Don Coscarelli as Dan Coscarelli was the director of some very terrifying films. Phantasm and Phantasm 2, for whatever reason, stuck with me and scared the shit out of me when I was younger. I was always like trying to dip my toe into horror when I was young because I had older sisters and they were always watching some messed up stuff. And then they're like, okay, we'll put on Phantasm. It's not that bad. And it ruined me.
It's never over.
I was so scared, but there is so much competent horror in this film that is what's surprising to a lot of people that are just like, oh, you like sword and sorcery, go watch Beastmaster, and they come back and they're like, that was really scary.
And that's the kind of sword and sandal stuff that I like, is where it's got this body horror stuff mixed in with it and just terrifying imagery, especially if you're a kid watching this thing. It is spooky and creepy, and it's got weird creatures and horrible imagery going on, and you don't know what to make of it, and it's horrific.
And it's the humans that are the real monsters in this. To put a nice little bow on, it's a guy that talks to animals, but the animals don't talk back. It's not Zootopia type deal or whatever, it's not Air Bud. They just kind of, and I like how they don't overdo that, because they could have put VO in place of the animal. What are the animals thinking or whatever?
No. And the way they did it, because they have the animal vision that they show, which is done well, but they have these moments where you can tell he's communicating with the animals, but they don't have some cheesy dialogue over it, or you don't have a tiger like nodding yes and no like they would do in some other movies.
Animated tiger mouth.
Yes, it's unspoken communication, and the way they shoot it, you get it. You get what's going on.
I do want a little bit of, if we had to have that, it's just some of the ferrets' thoughts, because they would have been the dirtiest bastards.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Also made Bubba Hotep, and one of my favorite underrated films, John Dies at the End. So Don Coscarelli has a freaking weird filmography. Let's jump right into it. What is The Beastmaster about, Lindsay?
You have powers unlike anyone in the village. To touch a beast up here?
The Beastmaster is, like we said, it's a sword and sandal fantasy action adventure family movie, quote unquote family movie.
Sure.
This king. His unborn son is stolen from the womb to be sacrificed, but that gets interrupted. Banished from his land, so to speak. You know, he doesn't know who he is. The king thinks he's dead. And it's kind of a hard plot to explain in detail because so much is going on. But it's pretty much the tale of this guy who can talk to animals, trying to reclaim his birthright and getting revenge on those who killed his people.
Sure.
Essentially. And he has to get through, you know, Rip Torn and his fanatics who have taken control over the kingdom, and also the Jun Horde, which is this gigantic evil army that is looming over the entire film. Like, when are they going to show up and start, you know, murdering folks?
It's almost like a zombie movie inevitability. It's just like everyone's trying to go and kind of live their normal lives. It's kind of like Walking Dead-esque, where they're just people are just trying to survive, and then whenever your card is pulled, that's when this Jun army just happens to kind of like run over your town, and it's brutal. Like,
it's very
they go
brutal.
straight up like piking people. There's no one spared, women, children, everything. Dogs, his poor dog, Kodo, I think. See,
yeah, his loyal dog.
Can we just jump right into the names in this movie? Your main
we have Dar.
His name's Dar. They worship a god named Ar. They lived in the land of Kardar. There's a Kodo, Podo, and a Shodo, and a Hru. What?
Kodo. I'm gonna name you Kodo. You get a name too, Podo.
Your name is Ru.
And the evil guy's name is
Max. Yeah. he's Max. He's just a little Jewish. You know, Max. I could say all this stuff because I am of the chosen people, but it is very smartly done as far as like shooting within the constraints of their budget, because they did have a budget, especially for 1982. It is a lot of like walking around desert scapes and hilly ravines and stuff. The flip side of that is, think about how much physicality that these actors went through. For whatever reason, this scene sticks out to me when he has the ferrets and he's like looking over the hill and he sees the tiger getting like messed with or whatever. There's one of the Jun barbarians that jumps out, and they shoot it.
They take a
huge tumble, and they just keep going. I'm like, dude, that hurt.
Yeah, and you know, they're shooting out in the desert, but it was like the coldest winter on record in that area, because they shot in parts of California and Nevada in that area.
My old stomping ground.
And they have very, very little clothing on, so the actors are just freezing. And a lot of this movie was filmed at night, where it's even colder. Some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, they said, you know, the crew's sitting there in parkas and mitts, and they're all warm. And they're in these loincloths and little strips of clothing open to the elements. It had to be really, really tough.
Sand getting everywhere.
Sand was everywhere.
Well, how about a little help?
And the budget, I mean, I don't know what it's listed as under IMDb. I think it's like 8 or
about
something
9
like
million,
that.
Yeah.
But Don Coscarelli said that after extemporaneous expenses, what's on the screen cost $5 million. They used $5 million to put together what finally ended up in the movie.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Yeah. And because comparing this to something like Conan, which a lot of people say this is just a Conan ripoff, and that's bullshit. Because Conan came out 3 months before this movie did. They were on the same timeline. Neither one was copying the other one.
It's an Armageddon Deep Impact situation.
It's an Armageddon Deep Impact situation. Yeah. And Conan had $25 million with what they did. And Beastmaster did it with $5 million. And I think they did a pretty damn good job with what they had.
I agree. But you could also see, I mean, they just went for it. And I think they had live animals everywhere. You know what could happen with that, like bears, tigers, and falling off of cliffs. You had just like a lot of perilous situations that I think they threw the actors at. Just the end set piece of when Dar's battling the war chief of the Jun clan. I mean, there is fire. There's no CG.
Everywhere.
There's fucking fire. So
No, and that's one of the more impressive scenes in the film. The last 20 minutes of this movie are incredible.
Feels like a different movie for the rest, but yes.
It's incredible what they did with the last 20 minutes of this movie.
Yes. It's like a Batman movie, right? It's just like there's two pronounced villains in here. Well, Dar has equal amounts of reasons to exact revenge on both. Little does he know.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't know that he should hate Max yet until it's revealed later. But definitely, you know, the Jun clan comes and wipes out his entire like adopted family, kills his dog, all this stuff. So that's what sets him in motion from just being a farm boy to now becoming the Dread Pirate Roberts, right? Like, that's what is the catalyst of this switch. And I think it's really blended together well. It doesn't feel haphazardly stitched together as far as the plot goes, where Max is the king's brother who is Dar's father, and I hate that he banishes him, because Jesus Christ, like, your brother is like in the basement with these like penthouse models with bad Halloween masks on. But again,
I call them the Butterface triplets.
I am thirsty are.
Yeah. But it works, especially when I was a kid. I was just like, oh, that's a lady. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah, Zed the king is a very terrible judge of character, because he should have just killed Max right there instead of banishing him, because he's like, I'm gonna kill your son. Well, I'm just gonna banish you.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you know, where he tells Dar to get away from him. I'll have no cowards by my side, you freak. Get away from me. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. You're a bad leader.
Your brother just made two monks hang themselves in front of you without saying a word.
I love monks too, because they all look like the punk Matt Damon from Trip.
They're all
They all look like him.
It's kind of like a Wizard of Oz type storyline.
Yes, it's very much the hero's journey. You know, the Jun Hort, where he's staying with his adopted father, who raised him up and taught him how to fight, and was, you know, like, you need to keep your power a secret. Yeah. No one can know about this, because they'll find out who you really are. So stop talking to animals in front of other people.
What happened here today must never be known. Never.
But the Jun Horde comes in and just wipes out his entire village. He's the only one that survives because his dog saves his life. And so he sets out on this trail of vengeance to track down the Jun Horde. And it's throughout his travels, he picks up his animal friends one by one. We get to see him introduced and how he meets the eagle, the ferrets, and the tiger. You know, those are each little setups. And then we have him meet Kiri, and then he meets John Amos and the kid. And this is all building and building and building to the final battles.
And the ballsack people that dissolve, you know, people's inside.
I call them the bat people. They're just the winged creatures is what they're credited as. And I think they're fucking cool as shit. Because you think they're like these horrible evil monsters, and they are, because they take people and just liquefy them, but they end up saving the day at the
spirits
end.
Or the ghosts of whatever at the end of Return of the King in the Lord of the Rings series, right? They were the cheat code. They're like,
It's Ex Machina of the Beastmaster universe. But I mean, they set it up. It's not as abrupt as the Return of the King, where it's the Eagles, yay, because they obviously worship the eagle as their god, you know, and the eagle's best friends with this dude, so he must be pretty cool. We'll give him our medallion so he can call on us for help later. So
sorry, I laugh, but you should say he's so cool, and he is. He just looks like, I don't know, an insurance salesman in a loincloth, and Mark Singer is just a G. Like, he's awesome. He was in the show V as well, and the greatest part about it is he's like a Shakespearean actor.
Yes, yeah, because that's where they found him. He did some PBS version of like Taming of the Shrew or something. Is where Don Coscarelli saw him, and he's like, "Yeah, that guy'll be a good Beastmaster."
It's not have bothered her at all to, the elements or all the physicality of this role, because she would go on right after this to do Sheena, right?
I think Sheena was 84, if I remember correctly, 84 or 85, I can't remember. But yeah, no, I guess she liked traipsing around the wilderness in little leather outfits.
I mean, that's work. Like, I mean, I wish I could say something like that. It's like, what do you do for a living?
Well, I was in Beastmaster, and now I'm going to go to Kenya and ride a zebra.
I'm Kiri. I'm a slave girl.
For 2 months.
Yeah. I love that line's delivery so much. It's my favorite line.
Now, who are you?
I am Kiri, slave to the priest of the Temple of Or.
You think of other sword and sorcery around this era, or even a little bit more contemporary, like Willow, right? You and I actually talked about Willow. We did Willow on the show.
We talked about Willow.
And yeah, there's like sword murder with like bloodless, like just battles and stuff. This is just brutal. Just so much murder. It's like, we've already ran through the gamut, right? But it's still so shocking to me that all of those things happened, and not only happened, but like got okayed, right? Like, because someone had to sign off on all this. They're like, okay, so you're gonna cut the baby, we'll like transport the baby into this cow, then we're gonna kill the cow.
Then we're going to brand the baby.
Oh my God. It's like the stuff of nightmares that you'd see in a snuff film. And it's just like, yep, PG it is.
And boobs twice.
Yes. Luckily.
Twice. Little bit of trivia. The first boobs we see, the villager who's rutted, that's David Carradine's ex-wife. I saw that and I'm like, no way. That's awesome.
Oh my God. Do you think David Carradine was drunkenly just like lost on this set?
It's possible. It's possible. Maybe he was one of the leather daddy.
I forgot about that. How could I forget?
Forgot about that?
Oh,
how could you forget about
full on
that?
gimp mask in this. Yeah, and that's also. It sounds like horribly stupid on paper, but in the scene, in the context, it's kind of like if I was chased down the hallway by that guy, I'm out.
They got those glowing green eyes. And you're just like, what the hell is going on in this pyramid?
It's just child sacrificing on top and the party in the basement. Was the first installment in this series, and it went on to spawn a sequel and then a third film. Mark Singer would reprise his role in all three. He would not headline the show, although he was featured as a different character in a couple episodes of the show, correct?
I'm not familiar with the show at all. I have not seen the third one. I do own the second one just because it's so fucking weird, and Wings Hauser is out of his mind.
Dar in New York.
Dar in New York. Oh my God, it's so terrible.
This didn't turn into the Star Wars sword and sorcery of the time. So they're just like, okay, we know what this is. Let's just go full batshit. Let's take the training wheels off. Let's make it a farce. And I think that's to its credit and not, I guess, because like, I don't know, I would have liked to see a follow-up to this that was just taken a little bit more, at least as serious as the first one took itself.
Don Coscarelli and Paul Pepperman, who was the co-writer and producer, wanted to follow more of not just Dar, but Seth and Tal and that whole thing where he becomes king. And there's so many stories you could tell in this universe without, going through a time portal, chasing Wings Hauser.
Driving in a Honda in the Beastmaster set. Yeah. Oh my God. They did recast Seth in the later movies, right? I think it was the Candyman guy. His name's escaping me. Tony Todd. He becomes Seth later on. I did like John Amos better, I think.
Oh yeah, John Amos was great.
Yeah.
He was really, really good in this movie. And it's funny because whenever you would say the word, whenever you would refer to Tal as king or the future king, it just made me think of Coming to America.
Yes.
It's great that so many people grew up watching this movie on TV, because that's really what saved it. Because between the end of post-production and release of this film, they had like 2 weeks. So there was no time to advertise this thing or put together any kind of campaign to really, push it out, because it came out in August of '82. Conan had come out 3 months prior, and the things that they could have used to really pump this, because Tanya Roberts did like a Playboy spread, but that wasn't coming out for a few more months. So this only stayed in the theater for like 4 weeks. But then very bad timing. And the biggest part of that is because MGM was going through this huge upheaval at the time. So the person that they really sold on Beastmaster was gone when it finally was ready to release, so it didn't have a champion at the studio. So it was just kind of thrown out there. No one was really taking care of it at the studio, and so it just faltered. And no fault of its own. It's just it wasn't taken care of. And then syndication and networks got a hold of it.
Boy, did
put
they
it on
ever!
TV all the time. This was the second most requested movie on TBS after Gone with the Wind. Okay. People loved watching this movie on TV, and so it's great that so many people have fallen in love with this movie and remember it from their childhood and have all these warm memories about it, and then it's become such a cult classic. But it's very bittersweet because Don Coscarelli has such. He had this movie taken away from him, essentially. The money people really hindered him in what he wanted to do. They took away his final cut from him. So what we got was not the movie that he wanted to put out. He loves that people love it, but it's not his final vision that was finally put out there. And right now they've got him and the other guy have the rights back to the movie. And so they want to do a new cut and stuff, but the original negative is lost.
Yeah.
Which is really a shame, because some lawyer had it in his house, in his garage, and then moved, and it was just lost. And so no one knows where this thing is or if it even still exists. Who knows? It could be in a dump somewhere, just lost to time.
Yeah.
And it's really, really sad because is it John Alcott?
Yes.
Was the cinematographer?
You're right. Yeah.
I think I'm saying the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Kubrick's boy. He won the Oscar for Barry Lyndon.
There's so many
yes,
scenes
yes.
of just like panoramic whips, and this is way before drones, so you have to assume helicopter at that point. Crazy. So yeah, they definitely, it was money well spent. It is one of those, and this isn't like you said, Don Coscarelli, this got taken away from him, which upsets him, but it's not like it's like David Lynch and Dune, where he's just like, I don't want anything to do with it,
And it was a nightmare.
No, it's not that bad. No, he very much he understands why people love it, and he wrote the damn thing too, so he has a lot of ownership over the final product, anyways. So, yes, Don and
whoever
Dan.
that may be. It is one of those that appeals to sword and sorcery purists. Like, I would recommend this for people that like Willow, and I would also recommend this for people that like horrible movies, right? Like, because it has enough of that, and it marries those two genres so well.
Just because I love this movie so much, I think people are too quick to put it in the box of bad movie because, it's a sword and sandal. They think it's a Conan ripoff. And a lot of these are people that haven't really seen it or didn't grow up with it. But it does have those low budget charms because they had to skimp on things like special effects. Because there's definitely some special effects in this movie that are like, oh, you can tell this was made before digital, Because there's like the smoke plume with the Jund doesn't look great. When the eagle is flying with the kid, you can see the cutout.
My favorite.
You can see the outlines.
Yeah.
You can see some seams. Right, you can see some seams in the special effects, but they did so many cool practical things in this movie with miniatures and matte paintings and makeup and wires and just and the animals and everything. When they're in the pyramid to rescue the king, Kiri like excuses herself to go put on less clothing.
Yes.
To put on a shorter skirt. Okay, that makes sense.
Well, because movie, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah. It had an aesthetic for sure.
It did.
Which made it so much more jarring when they went to New York in the second one. But
very jarring. But I mean, because a lot of these sword and sandal films, like you look at like The Hunter,
Kroll.
Deathstalker, a lot of that is objectifying Kroll. And that one not so much because
Yeah,
that's more
yeah.
male focused completely. And sci-fi. But a lot of them objectify the female form. You know, it's all about showing female skin, but everyone's showing skin in this movie.
Yeah,
Everyone.
there's a definite difference between this and like Deathstalker because it's just like it's almost played as like a lighthearted joke because he's just like he tricks her, he kind of cons her into a kiss with the whole, the panther thing or the tiger thing. But if that was Deathstalker, that would have been a very explicit and horrible scene. It's a very different kind of scene.
Oh yeah. But this movie, it strikes such a delicate balance between like a hard rated R movie with some of the violence and spooky shit going on, and then this family friendly stuff. Like the ferrets are very much comic relief. A lot. And just different little asides between some of the characters are very humorous and like they're joking around. So it's this oddity between like a Conan type of movie where it's just brutal and nonstop action, and then something a kid could watch. And
I think that the world that this is set in is way more bleak than the world that Conan is set in. But if everyone was as serious as they were in that movie, in this movie, it would have been a slog. It would have been terrible. It would have been depressing. I mean, we're still seeing child sacrifice, but we're still like, but then the very next scene, it's like, the bird got that one. Yay! Sucks for the first kid. But, so it was crazy that he was able to hide a horror movie within a family movie. There's a couple other instances of that were done correctly. Like Neverending Story has like elements of a horror movie, or there's a bunch of them that get it right, but this one really does, and it doesn't shy away from it either. It doesn't like do the family thing and turn away. When the thing's happening, it's like, nope, there's the kid and in the fire.
Yeah. And like when he first encounters the bat people, there's that soup and that's a head popping out. Yeah, we're gonna show the head.
They're like, there's no blood. You can't give us an R. It's just everything else. But Mark Singer's a treat. Tanya Roberts is a treat. Rest in peace, her and Rip Torn. Right, like it's just we're getting to the point, unfortunately, where we're just like losing one of these actors like on a daily basis.
It is really sad. But luckily, they know that people loved their movies so much and loved this movie so much, because it really sucks when someone does a movie and then passes away and then it gets all this broad mass appeal or this cult film status, because I think it's sad when people don't know how much the work that they did was beloved by a group of people.
Do yourself a favor, do a double feature night and watch Beastmaster, then watch Freddy Got Fingered. And have a double Rip Torn.
Double Rip Torn extravaganza.
It's the same character.
I love Rip Torn so much because he's just so crazy, and he's just got it's that Rip Torn accent that just it works for the role, but it doesn't fit. It works and doesn't work at the same time.
Kill him now.
So Rip Torn's like, well, give me a bird nose.
I'm gonna be a vulture.
And it worked. God.
I could talk for hours about Beastmaster. There's so much behind the scenes stuff that went on with this film, and just, trying to get money to make it, because no studio wanted to do it. And they finally found a foreign investor that, was going to put up the money so they could finally do it. But that came with those people trying to control certain things and casting and all this sorts of stuff. So this production had its share of issues, and I think we're lucky that we did get the film that we did, because it may have just sat on a shelf for however long
Sure.
because nobody wanted to make this. The guy who was the composer, he had like 2 weeks to do the music,
Great
writing
score. We
and
haven't even
recording
touched on
it.
that.
So great score. Yeah, we haven't even touched on that. It's a great sweeping fantasy adventure score. They kicked Don Coscarelli out of the editing room. His beef was that the movie wasn't long enough. So they told the editor to like just extend every shot, just pad them for a few seconds, just hold on every shot for a few seconds before you cut it. And so that's why the movie is the length that it is. You can kind of feel that with a few shots. It's like, okay, we can cut now, but they just padded every single shot like a second or two to expand the running time, which I don't know why this movie had to be almost 2 hours, because we get a lot of sweeping shots of the bird flying and people walking, and I don't have any problem with it because I love this movie, but you could see where some people could get bored, like, oh, it's just this guy walking around the desert with a tiger. What is this? You could make this movie a tight hour and a half and cut it down and make it, and there would be no fat on it. So I understand why he's upset with that. And to pad out a film, just adding seconds to each shot, it seems so cheap and chintzy and just a bad decision.
I mean, I could put on a screensaver of just Mark Singer twirling his blade or that weird staff thing. Just for hours. I mean, that could be the movie for a 3-hour movie, and I would be very enthralled by that. He's a specimen.
He is a specimen. He is. And that sword is very incredible. And it's missing. That's another thing that's missing. No one knows what happened to that sword. And it was like expertly made by this master sword maker, master knife maker. He only made one of them.
It's more kind of outside the purview of the actual film itself, but you always like movies or shows about religious cults or any kind of cultish thing, right? And you know, Max is definitely a cult leader. And you get mad because he's just like, he's coming to your town and he's killing all your kids. He's has these gross hot witches and it's going to make you feel confused. You know, all these things are true, but it's just like, you know, you get mad at those people because it's always like, oh, you know, people die for religion, you know, and it's bullshit, all this stuff. But there's a lady that puts a baby in a cow. So there is some kind of power that they are actually wielding here.
Whether that's a god or whatever it is, they don't really go into detail, but yeah, those witches there is power going on in this movie. Supernatural
is
forces.
A magic user, you know, so to speak.
Yes. And that's where this isn't just a straight sword and sandal. This is fantasy also. And there's so many cool little touches, just little details that just enrich the world that this is set in and enrich the storytelling and the mythology around what's going on. Because you have the witches, you have the weird priests and the slaves there's all this sacrificing going on and these weird creatures and then the Jon and even down to smaller details like the eye ring is such a cool thing in this movie because they're able to watch what's going on and that becomes another plot point.
Yep. Yes, we're doing the hero story or the trope of the chosen one, but he's not Neo. He gets his ass handed to him during the entire film where it's not even, I mean, I guess he does, you know, go mano-y-mano at the end, but it takes a ferret sacrificing itself to take out one of the main baddies in this. So he is not just bulletproof, even though his abs are.
No. No, he's a sensitive hero.
Yeah.
He cries at one point because there's a tear right down his cheek. He's a sensitive
hero. His eye was
hero.
sweating, Lindsay. How dare you?
His eye was sweating. But no, it is very much that hero's journey. You know, he is Luke Skywalker. You know, his home is gone, and he must set out on this adventure to figure out who he is and what his powers are and who he is destined to be.
And isn't Kiri wound up being his cousin? So he is like Luke Skywalker.
Sort of. Yeah. Well, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really go into it, I don't think they're blood related. I mean, it's possible because the king's got another son, but Dar's mother died when he was stolen from her womb. So it was another woman who had Tall. So it could be that they're just related by marriage.
They're third cousins.
It's possible. But back then, people married their cousins or did whatever with their cousins. So
right.
I'm not going to judge.
She's a slave girl. Who cares? What do you want me to do? Yeah.
Right? After they have the battle on the ferry, the rope ferry, which is another scene that I love because that's a really cool set piece. And Tall is asking him, are you going to help us? Are you going to help us go back and destroy Mayax? And he's like, well, have your cousin come ask me.
And then, I mean, he did that and then kicked a bunch of like captives off to drown off the raft. So he's not like
that was a
baller
cool move. That was a great move.
Dead weight. Whoa, they're not dead. Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I see what you did, Dar. You trickster. Yeah. Yeah, this movie kicks ass, man. It is. Who would you recommend it for? I kind of already said who I would tell people about, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a horror fan and you just kind of brushed off fantasy or sword and sandal stuff, this is a great one to get started with because it's got elements of both and it's got so much cinematic history around it with the production and some of the people that are involved. John Alcott especially, because this is one of the last things that he did, and just the stories they tell about the way that he would shoot things, because he did Barry Lyndon, which is incredible because the lighting and everything. There's one of the actors tells a story. They were trying to shoot one of the things in the pyramid in one of the hallways. I think it's the hallway where the guys, reach through. He had a case full of different flashlights, and he cut the bottom of like a styrofoam coffee cup and did like a pinhole in the middle of that and put it on top of the flashlight and used it to light the faces of the actors. Just incredible ingenious shit like that this guy did. Just very very cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's no Witchcraft 1 through 69, right? No, but
no.
Few things
are.
Only those 100 horrible films. Don't look it up. Don't Google it.
Don't watch the Witchcraft movie.
Unless you go to Bad Movie Night and then watch the episodes about Witchcraft. Do not. You're going to be on a watch list, watching those things. But, it's weird because, like, it is one of my favorites, like, once I actually think about it. But, like, I think about this kind of genre and stuff, and I'm like, Willow. Or someone on Twitter is just like, what's the best, blah, 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 this kind of genre, It's not always the one that like pops out to me like right away. It's the one like later on that I'm like, damn, I wish I would have taken 5 seconds instead of being a spaz and thought about it before having to just spew things, But you've always been very consistent that this is it.
Oh, I love this movie, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. I love the last 20 minutes of this movie because it's so spectacularly done. And the way it was written, and then the way that they produced it and shot it, and the special effects and the stunt work that was done. It's the score. It's just all gels so well in that final 20 minutes. That final battle where they cover the moat and they lay a trap, and then they got to set it on fire, and they kick the guy into there after they set him on fire. It just explodes spectacularly. It's just great. It's just fucking awesome.
100%. There's very few locations. I mean, aside from just like desert, but like actual buildings and stuff, there's not too many, but it's okay because they put so much time and attention to each one that they get to like live in there, and you get to really explore these places, and that's really cool because it is. I mean, it's a sparse universe.
It's like another world.
And then you throw New York into the set. It's just, this isn't a Beastmaster 2 review, but Jesus.
No, it's not, but we couldn't help ourselves but mention it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much it as far as, again, this has just been a long time coming. I'm glad you all came to our therapy session. We've been wanting to talk about, R, Dar, and Max for so long.
I have my original big box VHS here.
You're just showing off.
And then I have my Vinegar Syndrome 4K Steelbook as well. This thing is gorgeous.
It looks like it weighs 50 pounds.
It's so cool. It's got a book in it.
You could read about how...
You can read about Dar and his animal
turkey
pals.
vulture.
It's so funny watching it as an adult because, like, John Amos and Tall are like, how did you come to be in the company of these animals? And he's like, they're my friends. They're just friends. And my adult brain is going, I think he does protest too much.
The ferrets pop out at comedic times sometimes.
Yes, they do.
Comedic areas.
Yes, they do. But this movie made me want to get a ferret, and I never have. And I still want one. I'll probably never get one. But I think this made a lot of people fall in love with ferrets. That's what I heard.
They bite,
stink
they
and
smell,
they bite.
everything. The idea of owning a ferret is always the best until you know someone. Whoever you know that owns a ferret is just trying to find someone to give the ferret to. So I'm glad, same, sister friend, but I'm glad I never pulled the trigger on that. I did just purchase a turkey vulture though.
Yeah.
But then I ate it because it was Thanksgiving.
There was a turkey shortage, so you had to.
I had to get a real turkey. Intergalactic kegger. I could do. It's hard to stop once you start. Lindsay, where can everyone find you?
You can find me over on my channel, just my name, Lindsay Washburn, and that's LandsayWashburn.
Nice. Yes, you could. Well, you found me. So, hi, hello. While you're here, hit the subscribe button. Tell everyone that we're talking about cult films. You could listen to this in podcast form on your favorite podcasting sites like iTunes and Spotify. Leave us prosthetic noses. Leave us loincloths, because it gets a little warm in the Pacific Northwest sometimes. Just humid, and it's very conducive to loincloth wearing.
I can't believe with the costumes these people had, especially like John Amos and Mark Singer, that a testicle never popped out. At least it had to have happened at least during a few takes where they're like, cut, Mark, your balls out again. We need to reset.
Lindsay, it happened all the time. They just put faces on them and they were the bad people. I'm telling you. You're never going to be able to watch those scenes the same way.
Take a look at the diving, bitch. Ooh, it's so veiny.
No.
You follow us on the Birds. Speaking of birds, follow us on Twitter. I'm at John the Host and also at The Cult of Films. Until next time,